What is better than that? Better than that is to become an Arya, a holy person. If you become a holy person, then you will never fall into the ghost realm. You will never be reborn as an animal. You will never go to hell. So in that case, you're not afraid anymore. So, how to get this? In the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 43, it is said that to become an Arya, you must have right view. Even the lowest Arya, called the stream enterer, the Sotapanna, he has right view. And so the lowest Arya, if you want to attain the lowest Arya, you have to get right view. And to get right view, I mentioned just now, there are two conditions. The voice of another teaching you the true Dhamma. The second is, when you listen to the Dhamma, you must pay focused attention so that you understand. Then you get right view. Now after that, the Sutta says, after you get right view, there are 5 conditions needed for liberation. These 5 conditions is Sila, and then listening to the Dhamma, discussion of the Dhamma, then Samatha and Vipassana. Samatha is meditation. Samatha will give you development of mind. Vipassana is development of character, contemplation, development of character. And it consists of the right effort and right mindfulness. You get this because you compare this with the Aryan Eightfold Path. In the Aryan Eightfold Path, after you get right view, 7 factors must be developed for liberation. So these 7 factors in the Aryan Eightfold Path is equivalent to the 5 factors mentioned in the Majjhima Nikaya 43. So when you compare these two, you will find Samatha is the 8th factor, right concentration, and Vipassana is the 2 factors, right effort and right mindfulness. So you find to become an Arya, the lowest Arya, you have to get right view. That means you have to listen to the true Dhamma, which is the original suttas in the 5 Nikayas. You have to listen to the suttas, the earlier suttas in the 5 Nikayas. I have spoken on all these. They are in the SD card, which you can order, or you come to our monastery, you can get. It's also available on the internet, YouTube and all that. So listening to the Dhamma will help you in many ways. The first one is, if you listen to the Dhamma, then you get right view. When you get right view, you have gotten rid of wrong view. You have gotten rid of wrong prejudices. You have gotten rid of wrong thoughts. So because of that, whenever you act with a wholesome mind. If you don't have right view, you don't have a wholesome mind. You don't act with a wholesome mind, and then you create evil karma, evil actions. And from evil actions, it becomes a habit, and then it forms your character. And your character, if you act with an unwholesome state of mind, you'll be reborn in the 3 woeful planes. But if you have right view, by understanding the Dhamma, the Buddha's earliest Dhamma, then you always act with a wholesome state of mind, and that will bring you for a good rebirth, always. So that's why studying the Buddha Suttas is so important. So I think I end here and invite questions.
Bhante, I would like to ask, if a person is always angry, how can we help?
If a person is what?
Always angry.
Always angry,
Yeah. Or easily angry. What is that we can do?
Firstly, when you want to give advice to people, you must know whether they want to listen or not. If they don't want to listen, you try to advise them, you get more angry. Yeah. So if he wants to listen, then you encourage him to listen to the suttas lah. Then when he listens to the suttas, he will know, oh, Bhante said, if I'm very angry, I always have anger and hatred, when I die, the Dracula teeth will come out. Then he gets afraid. There's some people we can help because they are willing to listen to us. Some people refuse to listen, you cannot help. Like karma is so bad, it's obstructing them. There are a few people who listen to my talks and they cured their depression. As one old lady told me, her, what do you call it? Anxiety disorder. Many years she had anxiety disorders, Mangchang. And after she listened to the Dhamma, after 1 year, she came to thank me. She said she completely cured her anxiety disorder. A lot of our suffering is mental suffering. Because of not understanding the Dhamma, we cannot let go. Cannot let go a lot of things. And that gives us mental suffering now. When you understand the Dhamma, you know that everything that happens in the world goes according to conditions. You have created the condition, you must reap the fruit. As Christians say, as you sow, so shall you reap. Any other question?
There's another one. My sister said, you didn't mention exactly the Mangala Sutta is what about the Iso, or is there any other sutta that is recite?
Mangala Sutta is all about blessings, how to get great blessings. But just by reciting you won't get. You have to put into practice what you recite. There are a lot of good things inside the Mangala Sutta. I don't know whether I mentioned. I mentioned in the talk 2 nights ago. The Mangala Sutta says how to get the highest blessings, not to associate with fools, to associate with wise men. Wise men are those who know the Dhamma. Fools are those who don't know the Dhamma. They don't live their life according to Dhamma. They don't live their life in the right way. They do things that they should not do. So they end up in the woeful plains of rebirth. And then to live in a suitable place, for example, you live in a place where you can learn the Dhamma, where you can practice the Dhamma, when you have monks and nuns to give offerings to, where you can keep, where you can go for retreat and keep the precepts and learn meditation, etc. And then to be guided by Dhamma also will give you great blessings. That means you have to listen to the Dhamma every day, otherwise you won't remember. And then to have pleasant speech, and then to support your parents and your family, and then generosity, and then respect those who are worthy of respect, humility, gratitude, especially to your parents, contentment, not to be over greedy, patience, meekness, not to be fierce. So all this, if you practice only, will give you great blessings, not just chanting. Any other question?
And then just now you mentioned that it's not the consciousness that take birth, it's the soul. Is the soul a permanent entity?
The soul keeps changing according to your character. The Buddha calls it the mind-made body. So you come into this human life because you have been a good person, reasonably good person. So you have a flesh body. And when you are born, your soul looks like your flesh body. But if you act wrongly, that soul inside will change. If you act wrongly, you change, for example, to become a Dracula. If you act rightly, you might change to become a Deva or a Devi. So it's changing all the time, according to your mind.
Take another question.
Yeah.
Nowadays, frequently we read the papers of children suing their parents.
Children what?
Children suing their parents.
Oh, suing their parents.
But in the book, Tibetan Book of Death, the deceased is guided. Upon them, the deceased is guided through a tunnel where they meet the beautiful deities, and then they also guided through a very dark tunnel where, frankly speaking, the children pick the copulating couple. That means they choose their own parents indirectly. So if that's the case, children cannot sue their parents and say that no, because they are the ones that choose their parents. Can you comment? Thank you.
Firstly, there are some books written by some people who have done research. These people, like some professors, American professor, whenever he hears of some case of somebody who remembers their past life, he'll go and interview that person and find out. Because there are some people who remember their past lives. So as far as this human birth is concerned, several of them said after they pass away, they saw their funeral, everything, and they came out of the body, they become a being a few inches high. And they wander around, they don't know where to go. It's not like you said, they see the couple copulating and go inside. No, they don't know where they want to go. Then there's a case of one person, he said, he wandered around for a few days. Then he saw a maid coming back from the market. And this maid is the sister's maid. So this maid was carrying a basket, a veggie and all that. So this being, he jumped into that basket and was carried home, and he was born as the sister's son. So after that person dies, he becomes a being. He doesn't immediately take birth. And he has to wait. It's not like Mahayana says 49 days. No. So as far as suing the parents, it's because it's partly the parents' fault also. The parents never teach their children well. So parents are reaping the karma vipaka. Nowadays, a lot of parents, they have one son or one child or two children. So they sayang too much, spoiled. Husband and wife sayang, grandmother, grandfather, both sides sayang. 6 people sayang one. So everything he wants, they give. Everything give. But those who practice the Dhamma and they bring their children to learn the Dhamma, go to Sunday school, you find their children become very obedient, very good. I know one couple in Klang, every night after dinner, the whole family will sit down and listen to the Dhamma talk. It's like the Christians. Christians, one of my sisters is a Catholic. After dinner, the whole family will sit together and pray for the peace in the world and all that. In the suttas, the Buddha said, if any monk or anybody says that Buddha taught like this and taught like that, or the Buddha said this and the Buddha said that, you must not accept, you should not reject also. You must compare it with the suttas, the early discourses of the Buddha. The Buddha said only if it agrees with the early discourses of the Buddha, you can take it to be the Buddha's words. Because the Buddha predicted that after 500 years after his passing away, fake Dhamma will arise in the world. And the Buddha said, when fake Dhamma arises in the world, slowly the true Dhamma will disappear. So the Buddha said, we have to make the effort to preserve the true the Dhamma, which is the suttas. We know that these 5 Nikayas are the original words of the Buddha, because the Buddha said his true Dhamma will last 500 years. Within that 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, we have Emperor Asoka. Emperor Asoka had a lot of faith in the Buddha. So he created these pillars by the roadside, a few feet, maybe 3 feet diameter, stone columns, and he got people to carve out the words of the Buddha on these stone pillars. Now after 2000 over years, they have managed to dig up these stone pillars, and we know that during Emperor Asoka's time, which was about 250 years after the Buddha's passing away, there was only the 5 Nikayas, Digha Nikaya, long discourses of the Buddha, Majjhima Nikaya, medium length discourses of the Buddha, Sangyutta Nikaya, connected, topically grouped discourses, Anguttara Nikaya, numerically arranged discourses, and Khuddaka Nikaya, the minor collection. So this is original Buddhism. No other books existed. After 500 years, and then Mahayana Sutras appeared. So you look into, for example, one of the founders of Mahayana Buddhism was a man they call Longsu Pusa. Have you heard? Longsu Pusa. His real name was Nagarjuna. In his biography, he said, people asked him, he came out with a lot of new sutras, books. So people asked him, what is it, Bhante? Previously, we never heard such sutras. Now you say these are the words of the Buddha. And what he said? He said, the Buddha hid the books in the dragon palace in the ocean. And he went into the ocean and took out these books. But we know during the Buddha's time, there were no books. See? That's why the Buddha said in the Sangyutta Nikaya, he said in the future, it is the monks themselves who create this false Dhamma. So monks can preserve the Dhamma, monks can also destroy the Dhamma, the wrong teachings.
One question. In the wheel of life, we talk about the three woeful states and higher states of existence. Normally, we look upon it as place.
As what?
As a place. A place to be born.
Okay.
Be born into.
Mm-hmm.
But those ranks also exist in ourselves. It means there are times in our life we are like hungry ghosts, especially we go for open houses. We are rushing. There are times we act like animals, we make our own daughters. There are times we are so beautiful and welcoming everyone. So, can this wheel of life is like a mirror? We look upon it as inside of us and also a place to attain.
Firstly, if you look at this dependent origination, Paticca Samuppada, 12 links of dependent origination, it says when consciousness arises, it arises together with Nama Rupa, mentality and materiality. When consciousness arises, it must arise with mentality and materiality. And when it ceases, mentality and materiality also cease. They are a pair, you cannot separate them. So when we are conscious, what are we conscious of? When you wake up in the morning and suddenly you're conscious, what are you conscious of? You're conscious of the whole world, yeah? Now, the whole world can be divided into two main things, mentality and materiality. Mentality is the mental objects that we are conscious of. Your thoughts, your feelings, your perceptions, your volition, etc. Okay. And that is your own your own mentality, but you're also aware of other people's mentality, other people's feelings, other people's thoughts, other people's attitude towards you, etc. So that is mentality. Materiality is the physical world. And most of us, we are not so familiar with the Dhamma. We think that mentality and materiality are very different. Yeah? Mentality is in the mind. Materiality is not in the mind. That's where we are wrong. The Buddha described materiality, the physical world, as earth, water, fire, wind. Earth, water, fire, wind are perceptions. Sometimes he includes space. Another one. Anyway, so if we study the suttas, when the Buddha talk about these four elements, he does not mean actually earth, does not actually mean water, fire itself, and wind. What he means by earth is the hardness element. When you touch something hard, you say this is the earth element. Okay? The liquid element is water. Fire is the heat element. And wind is the motion element. Now when we examine carefully, we find hardness is just a perception, It's just a perception, mind-made. The physical world also is mind-made. Because if you go and knock your head against a brick wall, you get a lump, then you know it's hard. No need to convince you. But for a ghost or a deva, they can just fly through the brick wall. Not hard to them at all. Why? Because it's all in your mind. It is your mind that creates the world. So similarly, fire. If you fall into hell because of your evil karma, you feel that the hell is very hot. You are burned by the fires of hell. But if you are Arahant, you go and visit the beings in hell, you go down there, you don't feel hot. Yeah? So now science is saying exactly the same thing. Quantum physics is saying that the whole world is in consciousness. It's just like when you dream at night. When you dream at night and you happen to dream of ghosts, you find yourself in the ghost realm. And some people, maybe because of past life, they dream of hell. So at that moment, he feels he's in hell. All this is mind-made. That's why in original Buddhism, everything depends on mind. That's why just now I said, mind is the forerunner of all states. Mind is chief. Mind-made are they. So it's very important to develop our mind. No need to pray for this. Don't go and pray to this Buddha, pray to that Bodhisattva. Nobody can help you, the Buddha said. Okay? So you consider it a realm. Yes, it is a realm. But that realm is in your consciousness. For example, now we see the world. We think the world is outside of us because we can see, yeah? But if you use science to explain, it is the light particles that enter your eye, impinge on your retina, and causes the seeing consciousness to arise. When the seeing consciousness arises, you see the world. Yeah? But where is that world? The world is not outside there, The world is in your consciousness. And where is your consciousness? Inside. Yeah. You don't need the eye to see. That's why at night when you dream, your eyes are closed. You're not using your eye, but you see another world. Yeah? So it is consciousness that makes you see, makes you hear, smell, taste, etc.
There's one question. asked by one of your devotees. Usually Chinese, before Chinese New Year, they will start to unfold.
Do what?
Pay back what they wishes. Then after that, when Chinese New Year, they will start to go and see Fan Hai Sui lah, or whatever that become their obstacle for the following year. Then usually what the Chinese will do is they will go and pray, so that this obstacle be eliminated, can be avoided. So what's Bhante point of view of these people going from temple to temple to pray, and just because they are worried, because they are signs, they are zodiac signs, they see a pig, they see the pig will Fantai Sui. So what's Bhante's view? This one of our devotees.
This is a Chinese custom, Chinese tradition, isn't it? Yeah? You look at the history of China, they did all these things, how much they suffered? Did they get a good life? They keep praying for all these things. China is one of those countries who suffered a lot for a long time. It shows all this no use, man. Nowadays people want to see feng shui and all that. Orang putih, Westerners, they don't believe in feng shui. They're much better off, isn't it?
Sorry, Bhante, lots of questions.
Okay.
Just now Bhante said that animals considered fruitful states. Generally, I think it's true.
Yes.
Nowadays we find some dogs. They were so pampered and they are sent for grooming, live a very good life, some better than humans. Is it possible, I'm not too sure, that the person who is about to die, and he's been doing a lot of good deeds, the last stop moment, the last frame, before he passes away, maybe that one not so good, so as a result, he gets rebirth into the animal world, but the karmic imprint that follows with lots of merit could be the reason why the animal is having such a good life. But the only way I think they cannot cultivate. Your opinion, please, Bhante?
We create karma, and the karma is in many different accounts. So, a person like last time, Lo Bun Chiu's son, his father was so rich, seems every month he gets 50,000 salary, do little work also he gets 50,000. So he had a very good life. But at the age of 30-something, he passed away. Yeah. So there are some people you can see, they do a lot of charity, give a lot of money. But they like to go hunting. They shoot wild boar and all that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So because of this, they can be born rich. But because of the killing karma, they have short life. So, it is our character that determines our rebirth destination. So, if you talk about the dog that is having a very good life, that person in the past life probably was a bit blur, not very, don't have that wisdom to become a human being. But he was very generous. So that's why. Coming to this last thought moment, a lot of people think that the last thought moment is very important. For example, even in Buddhism, this Pure Land school, they say you must chant Om Mito Pho, Om Mito Pho. At the last moment, you go for rebirth. Many years ago, I went to Telok Intan, and they told me one of their members, old lady, had just passed away. And they said, the last few days before she passed away, she was crying, every day crying. They asked her why. She said, who has taken away all my clothes? I'm naked. But they saw she was not naked, but she saw herself as naked because her lingun already changed into a naked ghost. So after that, she passed away. So they asked me why. I said she didn't siu sing ma. She just used her mouth only. So to explain this last moment, even in Theravada Buddhism, people who follow the Abhidhamma, they believe that the last thought moment will determine your next rebirth. Why? Because they talk about Patisandhi Chitta, rebirth linking consciousness. They think when you are dying, the last consciousness will link to the next birth. Yeah, but it's not so simple. Not so simple. If you study the original suttas of the Buddha, you find a cousin of the Buddha called Mahanama. He used to go to the monastery every evening. During the Buddha's time, monasteries were forest monasteries. All the monasteries were forest monasteries, several kilometers from town. So this man, Mahanama, he walks to the cemetery in the evening, help do some work, and then he stay back to listen to the Dhamma discussion. After the Dhamma discussion, he walks back alone, several kilometers through the forest and all that, to the town. And at that time, there were no street lights and all that, and he was walking alone. So imagine if every night, about 10 o'clock, after the Dhamma discussion, he goes back, because 10 o'clock, there's a time the Buddha's disciples took a rest. So one day he asked the Buddha, I said, Bhagavan, I was thinking every night I walk back alone in the darkness to my home. I might suddenly be killed. Say, for example, by a tiger or a bandit or by a wild buffalo or by a stray horse. Then he said, at the last moment when I'm dying, I'm afraid. Will I go for a bad rebirth? So the Buddha said, don't worry, Mahanama, don't worry. For a long time you have taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Then the Buddha said, if a person has faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, if he has sila, keeps the precepts, if he has tuo wen, much learning of the suttas, much knowledge of the suttas, all these qualities makes his mind an elevated mind. And that will bring him for a good rebirth. So the Buddha is saying, your last thought moment is not important. Why? Because when a person is dying, we have 6 senses. After some time, our heart will stop and our breathing will stop. If you ask a doctor will say, this person has died. Yeah. But a lot of people, because you don't study the suttas, the early discourses of the Buddha, you don't know. The Buddha said, when a person really dies, 3 things will stop. One is the vital energy, we call chi. The second one is the mind. The third is the body heat. So normally when the doctor says the person has died, he is still alive for a few hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. But after the doctor says he has died, his other 5 senses have closed. His seeing consciousness, hearing, smell, taste and touch have closed. He's no more conscious of the outside world. Has gone into his mind. Yeah. And during those 4 or 5 hours, as his body slowly cools down, he's dreaming. And what he is dreaming depends on his everyday mind. That's why Siu Sing is so important. If you cultivate your mind every day, you have a wholesome mind. So in the last few hours when you're dying, you have wholesome thoughts. You think of good things. If you don't sing, you don't develop your mind, you don't develop your character, you have an unwholesome mind, impure mind. You think of all the wrong things, and then you go for a bad rebirth. So only when the body has become cold, that person has really died. That's why we Chinese very smart. We keep the body for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days. Make sure it really die. Yeah? It's true, Several years ago, I went to Singapore to give talks, and the devotee brought me up to the top of his condominium, and he showed me an area. He said, formerly this place was all cemetery. Then the government wants to develop the place. So they exhumed the bodies. They dug up all the coffins because mostly the relatives want the remains. They want to burn and keep the remains. So one of the coffins they opened up, they found scratch marks. That means when that person was buried, he was not dead. People thought he was dead. So you make sure, you tell your children, next time, wait until my body is cold.
Bhante, out of curiosity, is it true that they say after 7 days that the soul is gone?
Oh, after 7 days, 7 days after dying, you mean the soul comes back? Not necessarily 7 days. Sometimes 3 days, sometimes 4 days, 5 days, sometimes even after 10 years. That shows that being has been reborn as a ghost. Quite often, people have passed away, and after a few nights, they hear somebody walking in the house, but cannot see. Sometimes the door will open by itself, the window will open by itself, the light will open by itself. Some even, the old lady passed away, she has a certain smell, maybe Hong Yu or something. When she comes back, you get that smell. So born as a ghost already. And when they are reborn as a ghost, they need help. So they come back, want you to help. So if you know that, then you have to help them. Now, how to help them? There's a sutta where the Buddha says when our relative has passed away, we can only help them if they are reborn as a ghost. And I believe that's because only the ghost can come back. The others don't come back. So what a ghost needs, most important, is food. Secondly, is clothing. That's why we Buddhists, we like to go to the monastery and offer food, and offer a robe or some cloth, and transfer merit. And the reason, we can go anywhere to do this dana. You can go to old folks' home, also can, or to an orphanage. And then the old custom was to put food on the roadside, poto. But Buddhists like to go to the monastery to offer to the sangha of monks and nuns, because the vipaka, the result, is more. Suppose you give a bowl of food to the monks, you will multiply. You get hundreds or thousands of bowls of food. When you transfer the merit to the ghosts, they will get a lot. If you do the old Chinese way, you put by the roadside, you offer a bowl of food, they only get one bowl of food. In the suttas, the Buddha said, if you give something to a dog, to an animal, you can expect to get the result 100 times what you gave. If you give something to an immoral, ordinary person, for example, a drug addict, you can expect to get back 1,000 times what you get. If you give to a virtuous, ordinary person, you can expect to get back 100,000 times what you gave. if you give to an external ascetic, for example, a Hindu yogi who has attained samadhi and eliminated the passions, the lust and the anger, then you can get back 100 times, 100,000 times, 100,000 times, so much. But if you give to an Arya, a holy person, the result is boundless. Boundless. So just now I mentioned about the person who develops the character and develops the mind. For example, an external ascetic, a Hindu yogi. If you make offerings to such a person, the vipaka, the result that you get is a lot, yeah. But it cannot compare to giving to an Arya, a holy person in the Buddha's teaching. The result is boundless. So, in other words, if you develop your character and you develop your mind, you will get a lot of blessings. It might last you many lifetimes. But it is not yet limitless, not yet boundless. Whereas if you become an Arya, you listen to the Dhamma and you get right view, you become a lowest Arya, a Sotapanna, then your blessings is boundless. So you be alive.
Bhante, how do we know, are there any signs as to which plane a person is reborn? From the facial look of the corpse or from any signs?
Sometimes can, sometimes cannot. No? There's a lady who told me the mother died of cancer. When she died, she was in great pain. Maybe the tumor burst. She was in great pain. So the face was a very painful face. But 1 or 2 hours later, when the daughter saw her, she told me the mother's face changed. Changed to be a very happy, very blissful, very bright face. It shows she had a good heart. Because she had a good heart, she had good thoughts. So would have gone for a good rebirth. But there are some people, even before they die, 1 or 2 days before they die, their face already changed into a ghost face. So you can tell they're going for rebirth in the ghost realm. And some people, for example, somebody who slaughters pigs, a few days before that person dies, he acts like a pig. An old lady told me the neighbor used to slaughter pigs. A few days before the neighbor died, he was running around on all fours like a pig and squealing like a pig, making that noise like a pig. They hear also all the hair stand up. So sometimes you can tell, sometimes you cannot tell.
Bhante, how long is the lifespan of ghosts?
The Buddha did not mention. It can change, just like human beings. The Buddha said human beings, our age, there is a time when humans can live up to 80,000 years old. 80,000 years. That's the time when the Buddha said Mahathera Buddha will come. And then if we create bad karma, it will go down until 10 years old. Human lifespan is 10. At that time, there's a lot of killing. We behave like animals. So probably ghosts also the same. It can change.
Bhante, we all know that like attracts like, positive attracts positive, and negative attract negative. This is the universal truth propagated by the Western philosophy called law of attraction. On the contrary, Buddhism teaches us the four noble truths, and start with life is dukkha. Life is suffering, causes of suffering, there are ways to end suffering, and there is a eightfold path. What the mind focus, the energy flows. My question is, if our mind keep thinking that life is suffering, wouldn't that we are going to attract more suffering? Why can't we think that life is a joy, life is a bliss, and all the problems that arise is only part and parcel, and vicissitudes of life that we just handle as it comes? Please enlighten Bhante.
When the Buddha said life is suffering, he did not ask you to suffer. He did not ask you to get depressed over it. The Buddha said, you should have equanimity. Whether happiness comes or suffering comes, you must take it in your stride. When you're happy, you become so happy until you fall off the chair. Then when dukkha comes and smack you in the face, you will also fall off the chair. So if you meditate, learn the Dhamma, you learn that everything happens according to causes and conditions. Whatever it is, you have to accept it. You have to be patient. And then you create the causes and conditions that give you a happier life.